Gwyd, Blyton. A Faraway Tree Adventure. A color short story. Illustrated by Alex Patterson. The Land of Enchantments. Chapter 4. In Search of a Spell. They all left their umbrellas and raincoats behind and went up into the Land of Enchantments. It wasn't a twilight land like the Land of Secrets. It was a land of strange colors and lights and shadows. Everything shone and shimmered and moved. Nothing stayed the same for more than a moment. It was beautiful and strange. There were curious little shops everywhere, where witches, enchanters, and goblins cried their wares. There was a shining palace that looked as if it was made of glass, and towered up into the sky. The enchanter Mighty One lived there. He was head of the whole land. There were magic cloaks for sale, that could make anyone invisible at once. How Joe longed to buy one. There were silver wands full of magic. There were enchantments for everything. Spell to turn your enemy into a spider, cried a goblin. Spell to enchant a bird to your hand. Spell to understand the whispering of the trees. Oh, look at all those fairies dancing in a ring and singing as they dance, said Beth, turning her head as she saw a party of bright-winged fairies dancing in a ring together. She went over to watch them, and they smiled at her and held out their hands. Come and dance too, little girl, they cried. Beth didn't see that they were all dancing inside a ring drawn on the ground in white chalk. In no time she was in the ring too, linking hands with the fairies and dancing round and round. The others watched, smiling. Then Joe gave a cry of horror, and pointed to the ground. Beth's gone into a ring. Beth, come out quick. Beth looked alarmed. She dropped the hands of the fairies, and came to the edge of the ring. But oh dear, poor Beth couldn't jump over it. She was a prisoner in the magic ring. Saucepan, get out the spell at once. The one your mother gave you, cried Joe. Quick, quick, before anything happens to Beth. She may be getting enchanted. Saucepan took the lid off the kettle where he had put the spell. He put in his hand and groped around. He groped and he groped, a worried look coming on his face. Saucepan, be quick, said Joe. The spell has gone, said Saucepan miserably. Look in the kettle, Joe. The spell isn't there. I can't get Beth out of the magic ring. Everyone stared at Saucepan in horror. Saucepan, the spell can't be gone. Why? You put the lid on as tightly as can be, said Silky. Let me look. Everyone looked, but it was quite plain to see that the kettle was empty. There was no spell there. Well, maybe you didn't put it into that kettle, but into another one, said Joe. You've got so many hanging round you. Look in another kettle, Saucepan. So Saucepan looked into every one of his kettles, big and small, and even into his saucepans too, but that spell was not to be found. We're in real danger in this strange land, without a spell to protect us, said Silky. But we can't run off home because we mustn't leave Beth in a magic ring. And we have to try and get Connie put right. Oh dear, we'll have to find someone who will get Beth out of the ring, said Joe anxiously. Let's go round the Land of Enchantments and see if anyone will help us. So they started off, leaving poor Beth looking sadly after them. But the fairies took her hands and made her dance once again. The children came to a small shop where a goblin with green ears and eyes sat at the back. In front of him were piled boxes and bottles of all sorts. Some with such strange spells in them that they shimmered as if they were alive. Could you help us, said Joe, politely. Our sister has got into a magic ring by mistake, and we want to get her out. The goblin grinned. Oh no, I'm not helping you to get her out, he said. Magic rings are one of our little traps to keep people here. You're a very nasty person then, said Moonface, who was upset because he was very fond of Beth. The goblin glared at him and moved his big green ears backwards and forwards like a dog. How dare you call me names, he said. I'll turn you into a voice that can do nothing but call rude names, if you're not careful. Indeed, you won't, said Moonface, getting angry. What? A silly little goblin like you daring to put a spell on me, Moonface. You think too much of yourself, little green goblin. Go and bury yourself in the garden, Moonface said Franny suddenly. Don't be rude. Remember what Mrs. Saucepan said. But it was too late. Moonface had been rude and now he was in the goblin's power. When the little green goblin beckoned to him, poor Moonface found that his legs took him to the goblin, no matter how he tried not to go. You will work for me now, Moonface said the goblin. Now, just sort out those boxes into their right sizes for me. And remember, no more rudeness. Franny burst into tears. She couldn't bear to see Moonface having to work for the nasty little goblin. Oh, Saucepan, why did you lose that spell, she wailed. Why did you? Here's a powerful-looking enchanter, said Joe, as a tall man in a great flowing cloak swept by. Maybe he could help us. He stopped the enchanter and spoke to him. A black cat came out from the tall man's shimmering cloak, and strolled over to Silky, blinking its green eyes at her. Can you help us please, asked Joe politely. Some of our friends are in difficulties here. He was just going on to explain, when he suddenly stopped and ran at Silky, who was stroking the black cat and saying sweet things to it. She was very fond of cats, and stroked everyone she saw. But she mustn't do that in the Land of Enchantments. It was too late. She had done it. Now she had to follow the enchanter, who smiled at them. A nice little fairy, he said to them. I shall like having her around with the black cat. She will be company for him. She can take care of him. To the great dismay of the others, the enchanter swept off, taking poor Silky. His cloak flowing out, covering her and the cat. Oh, now Silky's gone, sobbed Franny. First it was Beth, then Moonface, and now Silky. Whatever are we going to do? Chapter 5. Lost and Found. Look, said Saucepan, suddenly, and he pointed to a little shop nearby. On it was painted a sentence in yellow paint. Come here to get things you have lost. They went over to it, Franny still wiping her eyes. The shop was kept by the same beautiful fairy who had flown to Mrs. Hidden's cave, and whose secret Connie had overheard. Connie was afraid of going to her, but Saucepan pulled her over to the shop. The beautiful fairy knew Saucepan, and was delighted to see him. When he told her about Connie, she looked grave. Yes, I know all about it, she said. It was my secret, she heard, and a very wonderful secret it was. Has she written it down to tell any of you? Connie shook her head. She took out her little notebook and wrote in it. She tore out the page and gave it to the fairy. I am very sorry for what I did. The fairy read. Please forgive me. I haven't told the secret, and I never will. If you will give me back my lost voice, I promise never to peep and pry again, or to try and overhear things not meant for me. I will forgive you, said the fairy gravely. But Connie, if you ever tell the secret. I am afraid your voice will be lost again and will never come back. Look, I will give it back to you now. But remember to be careful in future. She handed Connie a little bottle of blue and yellow liquid, and a small red glass. Drink what is in the bottle, she said. Your voice is there. It's a good thing I didn't sell it to anyone. Connie poured out the curious liquid and drank it. It tasted bitter, and she pulled a face. Oh, how horrid, she cried, and then clapped her hands in delight. I can speak. My voice is back. Oh, I can talk. It's a pity, said Saucepan. I like you better when you don't talk still. I needn't listen. Connie was so excited at having her voice back again that she talked and talked without stopping. The others were very silent. Both Joe and Saucepan were worried. And Franny was still crying. Be quiet, Connie, said Joe at last. Saucepan, what shall we do? Go back and ask my mother for another spell, said Saucepan. That's the best thing I can think of. So they all went back to the hole in the cloud. But they couldn't get down it because there were so many people coming up. The Land of Enchantments must be moving away again soon, said Saucepan in dismay. Look, everyone is hurrying back to it. With their toadstools and things. We can't risk going down to your mother then, said Joe, more worried than ever. If the land moves on, it will take Moonface, Beth and Silky with it. And we shall never see them again. They sat down at the edge of the hole, and looked worried and upset. Whatever were they going to do? Then Franny gave such a loud cry that everyone jumped. What's that sticking out of the spout of that kettle, Saucepan? Something red, waving about. Look, everyone looked, and Saucepan gave a shout. It's the spell, it must have crawled up the spout, and that's why we didn't see it when we looked in the kettle. It couldn't get out because the spout is too small. Those are its leg things waving about, trying to get out of the spout. Quick, get it out, Saucepan, said Joe. Bad spell, naughty spell, said Saucepan severely, and poked his finger into the spout, pushing the spell right back. It fell with a little thud into the inside of the kettle. At once, Saucepan took off the lid, put in his hand and grabbed the spell. He jumped to his feet. Come on, maybe we've just got time to rescue the others, Beth first. They rushed to the magic ring, and Saucepan stepped into it with the spell held firmly in his hand. At once the chalk ring faded away, the fairies ran off and Beth was free. How she hugged Saucepan. No time to waste, said Saucepan, and ran off to find Silky. He saw the enchanter in his floating cloak, talking to a witch, and rushed up to him. Silky, Silky, where are you? I've a spell to set you free, cried Saucepan. The enchanter looked down and saw the wriggling red spell in Saucepan's hand. He shook out his cloak and Silky appeared. Saucepan took her by the hand. Come on, you're free. You don't need to follow him anymore. He's afraid of this spell. The enchanter certainly was. He ran off with his black cat without a word. Now for Moonface, said Saucepan. Gosh. Can I hear the humming noise? That means this land will soon be on the move. He could, and so could the others. With beating hearts, they rushed to the Green Goblin's shop. There was no time to waste. Saucepan threw the red spell at the goblin, and it went down the back of his neck. You're free, Moonface. Come quickly, cried Saucepan. The land is on the move. Moonface rushed after the others, leaving the goblin to try and grab the wriggling spell. Everyone rushed to the hole that led down through the cloud. The land was shaking a little already, as if it was just going to move. Beth and Franny were pushed down quickly. Then Silky and Connie followed, almost falling down in their hurry. Then came Moonface and Joe, and last of all Saucepan, who nearly got stuck in the hole with his saucepans and kettles. The end. Please don't forget to subscribe and click like or thumb up for me. I will coming back soon with a lovely story. I hope to see you again next time. Goodbye.